thing I wanted to tell you is, or go over is how could I kind of use FlipGrid with Eureka or Wonders. So I quickly went to like a 4th grade sample and I thought, where would in Eureka, where can FlipGrid fit in easily? So the first thing I thought about was application problems. So you can either assign this as asynchronous work. You could say, I want you guys to do the application problem before we meet, for math, right? Because they can certainly do that. It's meant to be independent. And then we come together to talk about that math problem. So it's not graded, it's not meant for that. It's just meant for them to kind of spiral through problems that they've had before, right? So right here, I would use it for them to explain their reasoning. There's this little thing, I don't know if you know it, but there's this thing called the math practices that, that sometimes we forget about. I was big into math practices. I always had them in the back of my mind. And the one that always really worried me was number 3, which was to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So when I think of math practices, this is what I'm shooting for. So if I'm going to shoot out or I'm going to push out a FlipGrid, I'm going to want them to struggle with that reasoning. And then that idea of critiquing the reasoning of others in FlipGrid, when others respond to their reasonings, you can train them and show them how to, critique nicely, where you say, I agree with your reasoning or I disagree with your reasoning. And of course, you would model all of this before you want them to try it. So that would be a strong reason for me to use FlipGrid. Also, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but these little green notes on multiple means of action and expression, please read them, because I ignored them before until someone said, hey, you do know that there's, scaffolding and connections to your English learners and special needs. So like in this example, it actually gives you a sentence frame. So like in your instructions for FlipGrid, I would literally put that sentence frame in there and tell them, please use this sentence frame if you need it. Or in your video, you can put it right on top of yourself and tell them, use, this sentence frame if you need it as a scaffold. And then I was also thinking about extending the learning. So what if you were to say, hey friends, after you're done with your application problem, I want you to go search for examples of everyday household items that could be weighed in either grams or kilograms. And then they could literally come and show you, on the video what they found, right? So then you're like linking what they're learning with actual real world connections. Other things you can do, Eureka with FlipGrid, is that student debrief, all those beautiful questions they have there that sometimes we don't have time for. Or what I used to do with the debrief, I used to sprinkle them out throughout the lesson. And that's great, but sometimes it takes a little bit of practice to do that and to be sure that you're debriefing throughout your lesson. But if you want to assign it as a FlipGrid idea and say, hey, I want you to, and you literally pick maybe just one of those questions, what new terms to describe capacity did you learn today? And then that's it. Just give them like 30 seconds to kind of process some of the ideas inside that conceptual understanding. And then the other thing is the exit tickets. So I don't know how you guys are pushing out exit tickets, but if they literally have them in paper form or somehow, they can show it to you. So one of these students could show you their exit ticket and then explain it, like how did they get to the solution. So right off the bat in one lesson, I could think of at least 3 ways, even 4 if you're doing that real world connection, 4 ways to implement FlipGrid with Eureka. The next thing I wanted to talk about is how do I use FlipGrid with the Common Core. So there's this, I linked it here. So speaking and listening, this is grade 4. I picked grade 4 because I used to teach grade 4. But if you go through the speaking and listening standards, you will see how FlipGrid connects with every single one of these. It just depends on where you're going to place it. So is it going to be at the end of a, let's say, of a reading? Is it going to be at the end of some sort of grammar lesson? So for example, here's one. paraphrase portions of a text, read aloud, or information presented in diverse media and formats, including visually, quantitatively, and orally. So perhaps that idea of paraphrasing, that's always a struggle. You can launch a FlipGrid, asking them to do that, and then you can actually hear and see if they understand what paraphrasing is instead of, like, let's say, retelling. What is the difference? And here's another one: report on a topic or text, tell a story, or recount an experience in an organized manner. That in itself could be a really cool way to push out a FlipGrid, to listen to them individually, and then as a whole, say, where is my class in regards to this standard? The next thing is Wonders. So I want to look for speaking opportunities throughout the Wonders curriculum. So I went really quickly. I went through fourth grade. I said, where could I insert a FlipGrid with my Wonders curriculum? So start with the essential question. Maybe make it a Monday routine, right? Hey, everybody, I want you to answer the essential question in a FlipGrid. Then on Fridays, after you've done all those readings and researched that essential question, ask them to do it again. How much more do you know? They can actually respond to themselves. And so they actually would have like a post, a pre and a post of themselves. Like, how much more in knowledge did you gain after studying the essential questions through all the readings and all the activities in Wonders? So as you know, in Wonders, there's also a vocabulary segment. There's a your turn there where it says pick 3 words, write 3 questions for your partner to answer. But instead of a partner, they would write it for anyone else. So those little idea boxes that they give you in Wonders are pretty clever. Like, sometimes I used to look at those, and I used to do these on Post-its. But now if I'm not in front of them, then obviously like push it out through a FlipGrid. Here's another one. The talk about it's are also good. Write 3 words or phrases that describe why keeping a record of the past is important. Then talk to a partner about what you would like somebody to know about you 100 years from now. So if you don't know, you kind of run out of ideas, look at your curriculum, because there's always more than enough ideas to kind of engage the students in that week's learning. But we're not done yet. So if you have the leveled readers, I like the leveled readers, even though it was sometimes hard to, to get to them. So I would be very, how would I say, I would be very intentional on how I used it. Obviously, I used it during UA, but I also used it as maybe a review for some of my struggling readers. I would let them take them home and then maybe respond to the reading in this format. So let's pretend that you assigned one of the leveled readers, and then you have them do all of the respond to reading orally, right? Like, why should they write it? If they can answer these orally, then I would be like, oh, awesome. And so you might tell them, hey, I want you to answer number 1 and 2 real quick after you read it. And then when they reread it, answer 3 and 4. So those are always inside the leveled readers. And also don't forget that there's this page on there where it focuses either on science or social studies. And this is actually kind of cool. Like, if you want them to have like a project here, they're supposed to work in a group. Like, I would literally like tell them, hey, let's form some breakout rooms. You guys are going to be working in a group. By the end of the week, I want you to create an advertisement for your product. So some of those leveled readers, they have some really good ideas in there, and you just need to format it digitally. And then to write about the text. So every week they have this activity inside their Readers Writers Workshop book. So if you look at this one's kind of cool. It says, write a dialogue between Chief Kama White and Sacagawea after Lewis and Clark leave the tent. So they could actually write the dialogue and then perform it, right? They could perform it. So that's something they could do in FlipGrid. And then don't forget that another good thing to do with it would be to actually have them record their fluency in FlipGrid, and then give them the 1 minute time frame. So then as soon as their camera turns on, they have to start the wink, the big day, and then you can literally actually assess them and record their benchmark of words per minute. So that would be an obvious way to use FlipGrid.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Curriculum Cafe. Click like and subscribe to join the cafe for more classroom tips from the TOA team.